Candid, captivating, compelling. Welcome to Cannabis Confidential with Dr. Dina. Listen in as Dr. Dina, medical marijuana pioneer and inspiration for the award-winning TV series Weeds, shares never-before-heard stories, chats with cannabis insiders and celebrity friends, and provides invaluable perspective and insight into one of the fastest-growing industries in the world. CannabisRadio.com proudly presents Cannabis Confidential with your host, Dr. Dina.
Welcome to Cannabis Confidential. I'm your hostess with the mostest when it comes to cannabis and hash. I am Dr. Dina. Thank you for joining us. We have a really cool show today. You know I love talking about hash, my favorite thing to medicate with. And people ask me all the time, they hand me a joint, they ask me if I want to smoke. And these days, I just kind of pass on the weed, pass on the flowers. And it's so funny because that was my thing for so many years. That was my answer to everything. And now that I've gotten a little bit older and I've realized that smoking all of this cannabis, putting all that smoke in your lungs does kind of wear on you over time. And I noticed that I was walking around with a cough that sounded pretty bad for maybe a year and I didn't like it. And a friend of mine was really into the dabbing culture, dabbing scene. And I was a little scared of it. I'm going to be honest. When I first saw people doing it, it was many, many years ago. I mean, I've always seen people use this stuff, but I've never seen them dab it the way that they're dabbing now on a hot nail and vaporizing the hash. And I was at a meeting with some friends of mine who run a testing laboratory for cannabis. And we were testing all these different types of our cannabis on his machines to find out what their THC and CBD levels were. And he leaned over and asked me if I wanted to take a dab as he took this big rip and drop some oil on this nail. And I was like, oh my God, that looks like you're smoking crack. What's going on? And he kind of chuckled and goes, well, I'm freebasing cannabis. So I'm looking at this guy who just basically admitted that he's freebasing THC. I thought he was nuts and I would not try this for the life of me. And years went by. And finally, a friend of mine who said, Dina, this is really not that bad. It's not scary. Just, I'll do one with you. We were in my office and he had his little dab rig and he in fact, it was even funnier as someone gave me a rig and I didn't even know what to do with it for like 3 years. It just sat there and I was so confused by it. I'm like, it's missing the bowl. I thought it was broken. And finally, my friend came in and goes, you have a great rig. Let's use it. And so he loaded up and I took this little tiny baby minuscule dab. And I felt so medicated from this little dab. I had so much more breathing capability in my lungs. I felt like it expanded my lungs as opposed to making me wheeze and cough up phlegm. And after that, I was hooked and I just started only dabbing. And, I don't dab copious amounts of cannabis oil. I think that it's best to do like little dabs throughout the day. You could always add more. It's kind of like cooking, you could add more, but it's kind of hard to take it out once you put it in. So that's kind of like my thing. And when I travel, it's really hard for me to bring glass with me. I mean, I do it when I'm in the US, but there's certain places if I'm traveling overseas or I'm traveling in certain places, it's a quick trip and I don't want to bring my e-nail because it's awkward and where am I going to plug it in? And if you guys watched my web series, Getting High in Jamaica, you can see on one of the episodes, we were having a hell of a time trying to find a place to plug in the e-nail on the beach in Jamaica. So that wasn't going so well for us. So the next best thing would to have a travel rig essentially, or a vapor pen. Now, I remember about 10 years ago when the very first e-cigarette came out, they were selling them at a cart at the Century City Mall. And it was like $400 for the starter kit, which was this little pen and these little cartridges that you can put nicotine in. And I was like blown away. I thought this was the coolest thing I've ever seen in my life. Oh, this is so cool. How could we put cannabis in this? And I'm sure there were so many people having the same thought when this first came out. And then they were bad. They would explode. They were just poorly made. And years and years went by, and all of a sudden they came out with a better product, and everyone started vaporizing their nicotine. And with that came, so much change because I would be in a restaurant and I'd look over and someone's vaping their nicotine oil in the restaurant. And by that time, they had pens that you could put cannabis oil. So I would pull out my pen and I would vape my cannabis oil wherever they were vaping their, nicotine pen. And it didn't matter to me if it was in Mastro's restaurant, I would do it. And we would create kind of a a little bit of confusion with the law. And that's, a lot of people would say you can't smoke that. You can't smoke it here. You can't smoke a cigarette, but it's not smoke, it's vapor. So where does that line, get drawn in the sand? So finally, years and years and years later, we're starting to get to that point where we're touching upon, how the government is going to start controlling vapor pens. Now, let's back up a little bit, because today's guest, they are very well known in the vapor pen space. In fact, I have some personal supplies of Dr. Dabbers on my desk right here that I use on occasion when I travel, and if I have to go to a birthday party or somewhere where it's not really, okay to light up a joint and smoke. Well, this is what I do. So I'd like to welcome, we have two very, very important people from the Dr. Dabber crew. We have Pantelis, Ataliotis, the president, and Johnray, Strickland, marketing director. Welcome to Cannabis Confidential.
Thank you. Thank you for having us.
It's a pleasure.
This is so exciting. So tell me about the very, very beginning when you first came up with this concept. Did you kind of walk past a cart at the mall like me and say, oh my God, how do we put weed in this? Or was it something different?
It was actually one of those things where my partner is the CEO, Jamie Rosen. He was actually a professional poker player, and he came across one of these products when, he saw someone using it, and he kind of, fireworks went off in his head, and he realized, wait a minute, there's something here, because as a poker player, he's obviously traveling, he's going around the world, he doesn't have access to all the stuff he would at home. So he bought a couple of them and sold them to his friends. And then next poker tournament, there were more people like, hey man, like, you have any of those pens? And then we thought, hey, why don't we brand this product and then start working on making it from an OEM sort of factory product into what we want it to be. And that's kind of how Dr. Dabber was born.
Now, did you start with just the simple vapor pen?
Yes. We started, our first product was the Dr. Dabber Ghost. It was the standard sort of coil and wick, load as you go vaporizer pen for concentrates.
And it's interesting. So what happened with, I remember the first generation, everyone had the wicks.
Right.
And then what happened? Was that really because those were made for more nicotine products, or was that meant for cannabis? Because I noticed no one uses wicks anymore.
Right. So, I mean, the whole thing about the wicks is it's kind of, what people's opinions are on the subject. I mean, obviously, we still sell the Ghost with the glass fiber wick. We think that it performs great, but there are a lot of people who are misinformed who think there are some health risks associated with using the glass fiber wick. So because of sort of word of mouth and this, spreading, all of a sudden everybody wanted a ceramic coil in their atomizer, in their vaporizer pen. Now, from my sort of experience, the ceramic wicks do not absorb anywhere near as much as the glass fiber wicks. So, in my humble opinion, the glass fiber wick is still one of the best products we sell, but it's all about what the customer wants, and we have to adapt to kind of what's requested and what people are looking for. But that's kind of the reason why you saw that turn away from the glass fiber wicks.
Right. I remember people posting things online saying take your pen when they're brand new and try to light them, and if it vapes and there's nothing in it, there's something wrong. And I'm like, well, I don't really know if that's the answer, but I do know that the wicks are much better for like a really viscous liquid as opposed
absolutely.
to,
because they're a lot more absorbent.
Exactly. And cannabis, a lot of people who don't know this about cannabis oil is that it comes in so many different forms, and you have to vape them differently depending on what kind of form they are. If it's a hard shatter, if it's a goo, or if it's a wax, or if it's a liquid, and you can't put liquid in certain pens, and so it gets really complicated. You have to know your system, and so it's cool that you guys make different products for different cannabis products.
Absolutely. And the new product, like our Dr. Dabber Aura, which we released a couple months ago, actually addresses exactly that. It has 3 distinct heating elements for 3 different types of products. So there's one that's better for higher viscosity oils, there's one that's better for lower viscosity oils, and then there's one that's for like a wax or a crumble.
That's amazing. And I love the ones that attach to all the glass, so you kind of feel like I saw you have a traveling dabber.
Yep.
Like a dab rig. That's amazing. I love it. You don't have to plug it in anywhere.
Yeah, no, exactly. It's battery powered, and yeah, you don't need anything except the actual unit itself and obviously the product you're loading. So it's super convenient.
I'm going to need to get one of those. Those are super cool.
Yeah.
I have a friend of mine who actually sent me a picture a couple days ago of one of your products, and he was like, oh my God, he's my partner. He's like, we need to get this. Do you know these people? I'm like, actually, yes. I'm interviewing them. But he was showing me that you have a heated cutting tool to help people cut their hash.
That's correct. This was actually like our little baby. It's been in development for like a year and a half, just because, believe it or not, as simple as it seems, getting the correct heat, was actually a lot more difficult than we originally anticipated. So the butter cutter is the product you're talking about, and it's exactly that. It's a heated loading tool, heated cutting tool, so that you can heat it up and cut it without actually burning it or vaporizing it. So that's our newest product.
That is so cool. I know so many people out there, especially extract artists, that are going to definitely need that so they can package up all their cannabis, because I have pizza boxes filled with slabs and I just don't know what to do with them because I probably need your tool, and I end up breaking the parchment paper every time I do it. So this is a much better way. I'm very excited to check that out. But we're going to have to take a short break. Don't go anywhere. Roll your joints up. Get your dabs. Get nice and hot. We're going to come right back. We'll be joined with Dr. Dabber Crew. Don't go anywhere.
Cannabis Confidential with Dr. Dina will continue after a word from our most confident sponsors.
Dr. Dabber, hurry! Its temperature is shooting past 1,000 degrees Fahrenheit. It's burning up.
I'm afraid for this little guy, it's just too late.
What caused the problem?
Only Dr. Dabber can maintain the perfect temperature for a smooth-tasting, slower burn. This standard vaporizer lost all of its health benefits, sending it up in smoke.
So you're telling me that most vapor pens burn so hot they produce smoke, not vapor?
Correct. Keep away from those standard vaporizer pens and turn to Dr. Dabber. Doctor's orders.
Less heat, more flavor.
Hi, I'm Montel Williams. Most of you know me as a talk show host, but I'm also an author, actor, single father of 4, avid snowboarder, and I'm also a medical marijuana patient. Living with multiple sclerosis, I'm in pain every day. Medical marijuana is my last resort, and it helps me when all other drugs have failed. If you'd like more information about medical marijuana, you can contact the Marijuana Policy Project at mpp.org or call 1-877-JOIN-MPP.
Previously on the Stoner Jesus Show.
We do have John McAfee. He's running for the Libertarian Party nomination for president. What makes someone like you want to take the reins of this?
We're so far behind, it's frightening. And in a cyber war, we can't hack into the Chinese. Back in 1979, they started building cyber defense systems. We didn't even think about it until 20 years ago. I see no candidates and certainly no one within government capable of dealing with this issue.
The Stoner Jesus Show, live Mondays, Wednesdays, and Fridays at 8 p.m. Eastern, 5 p.m. Pacific. Or find the Stoner Jesus Show podcast on demand at CannabisRadio.com and StonerJesus.net.
Peace, bitches.
Dr. Dina is back with more Cannabis Confidential, only on CannabisRadio.com.
And we're back. Thanks for listening to our awesome sponsors. I'm Dr. Dina, and we're back with the Dr. Dabber Crew. So you guys had some interesting information to let the public know about the new regulations for vapor pens. I hear that there's some big news on the horizon.
Yeah, absolutely. Obviously, it's big news in our industry that the FDA has just come out and said that they're going to start regulating e-cigarettes, namely due to the fact that they're trying to cut down underage use, which is, completely understandable. They've seen a rise in, e-cigarette use in under 18s where they've seen a decline in cigarettes. So this is just another sort of regulation that they're going to be doing as, to catch up with technology, basically. They've regulated the tobacco industry, once every 6 to 10 years for the last 30 years. So it's not really a surprise, but obviously it did send a little bit of a shockwave through our industry because a lot of people classify vaporizer pens as e-cigarettes, both for marketing purposes as well as for legal purposes. So it is to be seen what kind of impact it will have on us, but the actual regulation itself is more centered on minimizing underage tobacco use with e-cigarettes.
Got it. So would that mean that if your product's carried at a head shop that they would have to be 21 and over to purchase?
Well, yeah, I mean, the 18 and over is basically like the standard. We don't sell to anyone under 18. Most of our competitors don't sell to anyone under 18 as it is. So, it's the cutoff is 18, not 21 for this.
Interesting. And that's because your product is not loaded with a substance?
Correct. Yes. We only sell hardware, so we are an electronics company. Everything we sell is simply hardware. We haven't delved into any of the liquids or any of the product to actually load into the devices.
And I like that because I'm really picky and I want to put my own product in there. So I appreciate that you just make a quality product that we can put what we want in there. And it's not for nicotine. And it's so funny how there's probably more, I feel like there's more pens on the market made for cannabis oil than there are nicotine pens. But yeah. I could be wrong. And it's also interesting, a fact that I learned a long time ago through Snoop Dogg's camp was that we were having this meeting with Sean Parker probably about 6-7 years ago. And he was telling us that he had purchased all the factories in China that manufacture the batteries for all of these pens.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's kind of interesting to see who's, behind the Adult Use Act in California and what's in it for them, per se. But I really do believe that children should not have access to cannabis or nicotine products until they're of a certain age. But here's the other situation. I have patients who are 16 years old who have cancer and have permission from their doctor and their parents to use cannabis. And so they come in to the dispensaries with their parents, with a doctor's letter. And at that point, are they allowed to purchase your products?
I mean, technically speaking, they shouldn't be. There are, obviously, as you know, other methods of ingestion other than vaporizing or smoking. And, just from a moral standpoint, I think anyone under 18 should probably stay away from, vaporizer pens or any other sort of smoking method and stick to something like edibles or tinctures or something like that.
Got it. Very interesting. Very interesting. See, the complicated thing here is that from all of my experience, when you're going through cancer and if your main issue is nausea and that's what you want to cure, the one thing that helps nausea is either smoke or vapor because when you're nauseous, you can't really eat anything. And so that creates a problem. And so that's where I find it fascinating to see what's going to happen there because we do have patients who choose to do that, even though it's not very much. It's like only in emergency situations because how quickly can they get that much medication into their system as fast as they can, without using a vapor pen or taking a dab. And that's really, that's the trick.
And we need to elevate the conversation that you just mentioned there with the FDA and really show that there's different outlets and we need to have that discussion and maybe come to those conclusions and instead of the regulation that we're seeing looming, I guess.
Well, you have the government trying to work on a new inhaler, like cannabis inhaler spray. So to me, it's the same thing. I don't see the difference between inhaling a pharmaceutical version of cannabis versus inhaling a non-pharmaceutical organic version. But that's just me.
Exactly.
Oh, for sure. You're right. And I mean, with the nausea thing, you're dead on because I know a couple cancer patients who have been prescribed Marinol, which is the pill, for that exact reason, for nausea and lack of appetite, and it hasn't worked at all.
Right, and do you know how much it is? It's like $900 for a bottle. It's ridiculous.
Yeah,
it's so expensive.
It's outrageous. And, the people, I mean, you were talking about underage patients, which is, a separate conversation. But, the people that I knew were of age and, they were able to smoke. And that was the only thing that would work for their nausea and their lack of appetite. Yet, when they were taking the pill, which wasn't working, that was legal. But when they were smoking the product, it was all of a sudden illegal. So, it's the same old sort of story. Like Johnray said, I mean, it's definitely a conversation that needs to be taken up with the FDA, and they need to understand that, there are exceptions to the rule, and there are, specific situations where people, do need things that they don't have access to, whether they're underage or out of state or whatever it may be.
Yeah, and exactly. We wanted to create a portable vaporizer that's convenient and reliable and potent and effective and stylish, but you can use it anywhere stealthily. And you hit the nail on the head when you're talking about traveling and having your whole rig going with you just doesn't make sense. Now, this low profile use can also translate into that it doesn't need to be a freebasing product. It can be something that's portable and accessible to different age groups.
Absolutely. In fact, there's so many pens out there and so many of them are shitty. And I took like 10 pens with me out of the country. I won't say what country so I don't give myself up, but it was not a country that likes cannabis very much. And this was like my survival, for like 10 days. I'm relying on these pens. And within 20 minutes of loading the first pen, the atomizer, the coil just dies. And I'm furious. And then the second pen, like I went through like 8 brands in literally 4 hours. And at the end, I had one of your pens and I had another pen from Puffco. And those were the only 2 pens that didn't break the entire trip. So kudos to you guys for making a good product, because I'm hard on those suckers. But a lot of those brands, they just break so quickly and it's such a waste of money.
Absolutely. And then the thing is that if you go on Reddit or any of these kind of online forums, you'll see there's a lot of people that are like, oh, you're crazy for paying, $80 for a vaporizer pen. You can buy them from China for $12 or $15. But the fact is, like you mentioned, us, companies like Puffco, we put a lot more time and effort into actually building the product and picking the best possible components and making sure they work properly. So, it's not sort of an anomaly that those were the 2 units that worked for you. It's just, a lot of customers don't understand that in this industry, you are buying quality. You're paying for quality.
Absolutely. Absolutely. You don't want to pay for something you're not going to use or not going to like. Just spend a couple extra bucks and get the good one. I always say that. So we're going to have to take a short break, but when we come back, I want to talk about the fact that you guys are sort of like cannabis refugees a little bit, because you've left Florida and now gone to Nevada, where it is like the gold rush is beginning out there and it's such an exciting time. And it's so nice to see a state that allows other patients from other states to go into their dispensaries. In California, they don't want that. In any other state, they don't want that. But in Nevada, if you are a California patient, if you are a Michigan patient, if you are an Arizona patient, they have this lovely little thing, reciprocity, and they will allow you to come in and purchase your cannabis, and then you can pick up a pen and get your groove on. So don't go anywhere. We're going to take a short break. When we come back, we'll be joined again with the Dr. Dabber crew to talk about being a cannabis refugee.
Cannabis Confidential with Dr. Dina will continue after a word from our most confident sponsors.
Northwest Alternative Health, Eugene's premier medical marijuana clinic, is proud to sponsor the Oregon Marijuana Business Conference. Are you prepared for the changes in the recreational and medical marijuana markets? The OMB presents the state's top industry experts, along with over 40 exhibitors, and features a keynote by Dr. Carl Hart. Also, tickets include a celebrity interview and private after-party with the one and only Tommy Chong. Join us Sunday, April 24th at the downtown Eugene Hilton and be a part of Oregon's fastest growing industry. Check out OregonMBC.com for more details.
Great websites today need expert web design and development and need to be e-commerce ready and mobile friendly. But building a marketable and profitable website can be an uphill climb. Ready to make your new website or replace your existing website? Think Orange as the new way to get in the black. Orange Hill Development works with Fortune 500 companies and offer the same top quality development service at a fraction of what other providers charge. Brands like Absolute, Carlsberg, and Nestea trust Orange Hill Development. Find out why you should trust your website with Orange Hill. Contact Orange Hill for a consultation today at orangehilldevelopment.com.
Tommy Chong is ready to cut through the smoke and change the tone of Tilk Radio.
All you have to do is decriminalize. We don't need a government regulation to tell us this is good pot, that's bad pot. We don't need any of that.
The Tommy Chong Podcast, only on CannabisRadio.com.
Welcome to my world.
Dr. Dina is back with more Cannabis Confidential, only on CannabisRadio.com.
And we're back. This has been such a great show. So you guys just moved from Florida, which is so lovely and sunny, yet just hates cannabis, to lovely sunny Nevada. So what is that like?
It's good. It's great. We are enjoying the difference. Obviously, there's a lot more going on here. But apart from that, like you said before the break, reciprocity is something that just goes to show how accepting this state is. And it just makes sense. I mean, reciprocity, if you're legal in one state, you should be legal in any other state that's legal. So they're very forward thinking, and we feel that every day, the people we meet, the people we interact with here. I mean, it's just a completely different way of life.
It is very different, but I do notice a lot of that has to do with the fact that they require you to have such a large bank account in order to open these types of businesses out there. They're really squishing out the little guy, and they really are trying to keep it corporate. And so it's turning a little bit into Colorado, but I think it's going to be really interesting because right now all the growers haven't really, gotten on par. They're not done. They haven't finished all of their space, so they don't have enough product. So I know that when you go into those dispensaries right now, it's a little disappointing. It's not quite like being in California. I'm spoiled, but it will get there. We'll get there. Do you guys ever come out to California?
Yeah, we do the Cannabis Cup, San Bernardino. We're probably in California 4 or 5 times a year.
Oh, wonderful. Are you going to be at the High Times Cup this July?
Absolutely. We don't miss the Cannabis Cup.
Awesome. Well, we'll be seeing you there. This is a very exciting time of year. So where can people find out more information about you guys?
Johnray?
Well, you can find us on drdabber.com or follow us on Instagram or Twitter or Facebook. We're very interactive when we go online with our passionate crowd. These people want to make sure they're getting a good product that's backed up, and we try to, show face online every day. So
we love that. So I have a question. Who blows the glass that you guys have?
Oh.
Those beautiful hives with the bees that you guys sent me? They're so pretty.
If we told you, we'd have to kill you.
Oh, well then don't do that. Will you just tell that person I think they're really talented?
Yeah, no, they're all made in America, hand blown. We have 2 different suppliers, one that does the, the adorned honeybee sort of style that you're talking about, and then we have another glass blower in Montana that blows the attachments for the vaporizer pens all day, every day. 40 hours a week. So
that's so cool. I love that. You guys are just spreading the love, keeping all the business in the U.S. here, getting these guys jobs. To be a glass blower now compared to what it was 20 years ago, it is a whole new world. Those guys never used to make any money, and now all of a sudden they've got a skill that everyone wants to get in touch with. It's pretty cool. My good friend David LaBrava from Sons of Anarchy is like my big brother, but he was one of the original glass blowers in Northern California, and it's so funny because he stopped blowing glass and he just got back into it, and I took him to a glass show, and he knew every glass artist, people that Eric Krunk, people I was freaking out about meeting. And he's like, oh yeah, he trained me. Oh yeah, I taught that guy how to grow. So it's so funny to see that. And now with the vapor pens, the fact that you guys are incorporating it with the glass, I think that's really, really neat. And I think everyone needs to go check it out. Go pick yourself up a Dr. Dabber piece. Where can they buy them? Is it only online?
No, we're in over 1,500 stores across the country. We've got distribution in Europe, Switzerland, Holland, England, South Africa, so pretty much anywhere.
Man, if you guys can't find it, you're missing out because they sound like they are everywhere. So go check them out. I think they're great products. I know you guys are going to love them. Check them out, drdabber.com, and make sure you go and give this 5 stars. Make sure you share it with your friends so everybody can hear about what an awesome product they have. And make sure you follow me at Dr. Dina 420 on Snapchat, on Instagram. My website's Dr. Dina 420, and on Twitter, it's just Dr. Dina. So thank you so much for listening to another episode of Cannabis Confidential. And thank you again to my producers for making this show possible. And you guys are awesome, my listeners. I love you. Let's light one up and smoke it right now because I am out.
The opinions expressed on this CannabisRadio.com program are those of the guests and hosts and do not necessarily reflect those of the staff and management of CannabisRadio.com. Any rebroadcast or redistribution without proper consent of CannabisRadio.com is prohibited.